The Asus ROG Ally is nearly upon us, a competitor to the Steam Deck and the first alternative option to the Steam Deck coming out with a guarantee you'll actually be able to use if it goes wrong. This was announced back on April the 1st, and while there have been some little trickles of information coming out, Asus have now held a live stream to formally announce this new product. So let's have a quick roundup of what we know. The presentation started outlining the inspiration behind the ROG Ally, with the intention being to dismiss the idea that gaming handhelds always have to be technologically inferior to their console counterparts. They want this to be no longer a compromise, they said, and as I quote, "We deserve a game changer in 2023. A big shout out they made was to make sure that we know it works on Windows, and that if it works on the Windows, it works on the Ally. Probably a bit of a dig at the Steam Deck there, as getting some titles to work can be like trying to cure polio. And that it comes with 3 months of Game Pass Ultimate for free, a nice incentive, and I'm sure they're hoping to drive subscriptions with that. Maybe there was a bit of subsidy from Asus to keep the price low there. They went on to talk about its ergonomics, stating that they want this to effortlessly meld to your hands with everything placed for precise control. Looks like they went through a hell of a lot of work and prototypes here, and they showed them all on screen. And then there's a little finger-by-finger presentation to show how each button is tailored to the human hand. A bit of a moot point, I'd expect it to be compatible with those anyway. It's also got some textured surfaces, which is always nice. The device comes in at 608 grams, so it's most definitely lighter than human and lighter than the Steam Deck, which comes in at 669 grams. They talked about how they shaved some fins from the heatsink and hollowed out the case to achieve this weight. However, they made sure the device was still tough enough to withstand my sweaty bread hooks. They confirmed the 7-inch screen, 1080p. They went with the higher resolution to make sure that the image was super sharp, which combined with a 120Hz display, it should be. There's also a 500 nit brightness on the display. I don't exactly remember the decks, but it's certainly higher than I remember hearing about that. There's also Gorilla Glass Victus on the front, which is an excellent addition and should protect against my kids stepping on it like it's a toy. We then move on to performance. They want to hit top tier graphics, and they want to show us some benchmarks. AMD has worked with them to create the Z1 and Z1 Extreme processor with Zen 4 architecture, RDNA 3 graphics, 6 cores, 12 threads, or 8 cores, 16 threads for the Extreme, and some apparently amazing battery performance. They compared the teraflops of previous devices that came out, with 2017 hitting 0.39, another device from 2022 hitting 1.6, and the Ally hitting 2.8 on the Z1 and 8.6 on the Z1 Extreme. Great stuff, those numbers are higher, but why not name the devices? This just goes back to charts being meaningless without context, but hey ho, I'm not going to complain too hard on that. We then get to some more questionable numbers showing that AAA games before the Ally run at 25 to 30 FPS, but 50 to 60 FPS afterwards. What does that even mean? What AAA games? What are you running the older ones on? I really don't like that kind of comparison, it's just meaningless. They have a case and earbuds available, who cares? The Ally can connect up to an external display without an external GPU, which is great. With an adapter available to charge and output at the same time, I imagine whatever dock you have for the Steam Deck you're probably replacing would work though. They also confirmed compatibility with the XG Mobile, which was obvious from the port on the top, an external and extremely expensive GPU enclosure that powers up the device with a desktop or laptop GPU if you go for the 4090 version. Some other quick bits: PCI Express 4.0 on the SSD, which is sweet, along with UHS 2 microSD card, which is awesome, 16GB of 6400 MHz RAM, and Wi-Fi 6E. For cooling, they have 2 fans in there, along with a zero-gravity thermal system, whatever that means, something to do with heat pipes working in any orientation that they wouldn't normally work on. I imagine this will work, I don't know, if not then just play it in the fridge. They showed some thermal images displaying how this had an impact over just having 1 fan, and I'm just going to kind of trust them on this one. We then move on to Armoury Crate. I've used the laptop version of this and always found it a bit fiddly, but they said you can get up to 6.8 hours of battery on certain power modes through this. Armoury Crate SE they're calling it, designed with all the usual stuff you'd expect from it, but also a game launcher that will scan for all installed games across multiple launchers. That's great news, as Windows handheld can be a bit difficult with this, so fingers crossed it works well. They also confirmed you can map the Ally's controls to mouse and keyboard, so the lack of trackpads will be mitigated. We'll see how well that works though. This is also a per game profile, which is sweet. They also showed adjustable zones for the joysticks and analog triggers, and some RGB to increase your frame rates. There's also a pop-out menu akin to the Steam Deck, so you can swap lighting, performance modes and other settings mid-game. That's great and very welcome to avoid having to go back to the Windows desktop. Some other neat stuff followed: social media integrations, screenshot organizing, and a fingerprint sensor. I do like me a good sensor. Onto the price. Z1 512GB, $599, not available at the moment in European markets. 699 Freedom Eagles for the Z1 Extreme model. For those of us here in Old Blighty, we have a price of £699 for the Z1 Extreme, and it's sold exclusively at good old Curry's PC World, who it turns out haven't gone under. Didn't realise that. With pre-orders starting on the 16th of May. US pre-orders, not entirely sure. We should see some reviews coming out soon, as I know reviewers do have their hands on devices. When it launches, we'll be doing a bit of coverage and some benchmarks, so subscribe for that, and until next time, bye bye.